welcoming CBS Sports HQ college football analyst Barrett Sallee. Barrett, if I had told you Friday, maybe earlier on Saturday, that South Carolina would put up 63 points and Tennessee would not have 63 points, what would you have said to me?
I would have said, Hakeem, you've got more than one liquor bottle in your office hidden in one of those drawers, because I don't think anybody saw this coming. Even after earlier this afternoon, when you had so many close calls, Ohio State, TCU, Michigan, nobody expected this. This is South Carolina. This is a team that is sort of an afterthought and has been an afterthought since the latter days of the Steve Spurrier era. They haven't had an offensive performance like this that I can remember, because even when they were top 5, top 10, it was with Jadeveon Clowney. It wasn't Steven Garcia lighting opposing defenses up. It wasn't Connor Shaw lighting opposing defenses up. They won it up front. This is brand new territory for South Carolina. This is something that Shane Beamer wanted. This is part of his plan. He wants an offense like this, one that is balanced, that can spread the field deep. But you watch that game, it was not just the passing offense. They pounded the rock as well. This is one of the most shocking outcomes we've seen in college football in quite some time. I mean, looking at those numbers from Spencer Rattler, they seem fake. They seem like something my 11-year-old puts up against me in Madden, and he does it quite often. I mean, it was remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, Spencer Rattler, have a day indeed. I mean, he'd never done that at Oklahoma. And look, end of the season, things can get wild, right? I mean, this is why no result is promised, especially in college football late in the season. This is why we watch. And to me, this is really tough, right? Because you're Tennessee and you had a shot here. If you win out, you beat South Carolina, you beat Vanderbilt, which will be a tough game in and of itself. You still give yourself a shot to get into the playoff. And now those dreams are dashed. And the season looks as if, okay, we had a great season. We came up short. But the problem here is they didn't have Hendon Hooker. Look, he got injured in the fourth quarter, but this wasn't the Hendon Hooker that we have seen all season long. What did South Carolina do to disrupt him and this Vols offense, one of the highest scoring in the nation?
Well, I think what you saw was, you look at Hendon Hooker's stats, and it doesn't really show what I'm about to say, but in reality, when South Carolina was building that lead, their defense was keeping everything in front of him. Jalen Hyatt was not getting beat deep. Cedric Tillman was not getting deep. It's essentially the same game plan that Georgia used with players that aren't up to Georgia's standard. But South Carolina did it. They did it enough to let their quarterback, who was having a career day, get their team in position where Tennessee was playing from behind. Tennessee was scrambling a bit. So essentially this defense said, look, all right, we're not going to let Hendon Hooker throw all over us like Alabama. Jalen Hyatt, you're good. You're potentially the Biletnikoff Award winner, but you're not going to get us deep. You're going to have to get yards after the catch, and they tackled well in space. And I think that's the one thing this defense stood out. What stood out more than anything else is that one-on-one, they were making tackles in space. You have to do that against Tennessee if you keep those receivers in front of you. And man, it was, despite the score, it was a masterful game plan from that defensive staff. And it allowed a guy like Spencer Rattler to cook, and certainly he cooked.
Yeah, and certainly when Hendon Hooker got injured early in the fourth quarter and he leaves the game, at that point it felt like, okay, this is over. South Carolina's going to win this game. There's no shot for Tennessee to come back. They outscored them 21-7 in the fourth quarter, did the Gamecocks. 21-7. And the game started 21-7. And so we were already on upset alert early in the night, and then they just absolutely dominate in the fourth quarter, does South Carolina. What does this do for Shane Beamer? Because now this season looks great. You knock off the 5th team in the nation. You put up 63 at home against the Vols. What's this win mean for Shane Beamer?
Well, it's a step in the right direction. You saw last year he got doused in mayo in the Duke Mayo Bowl. That was their 7th win, but it was after a bowl game. Now they're sitting at 7 wins with Clemson coming up, and obviously they're going to play a bowl game. It's a signature win for Shane Beamer. It is an announcement that South Carolina is going to be a factor in the SEC East for years to come. Now, are they going to win the SEC East? With Georgia doing what Georgia's doing, it would take quite a lot. But, Tennessee is going to be in that mix. And now South Carolina, with what they're able to do, think about what this means for recruiting. You can go out there and say, hey, look, Spencer Rattler, the guy who was kind of an afterthought, kind of a joke, the guy that got benched at Oklahoma, look what he can do with lesser talent here in Columbia. So I think for Shane Beamer, there were so many recruits there. It was a big recruiting weekend. They're going to see that team. They're going to see this performance and get excited about South Carolina. The fans are going to get excited about South Carolina football. They realize now that Shane Beamer, despite having no head coaching experience going into this job, is the right guy for this job, not just short term, but long term. This is a team now that is taking a gigantic leap forward. Sure, and record-wise, it might not look that different when all is said and done compared to last year. But the way they've played, the way they've operated, it shows that this team is going to be relevant in a division that has always sort of searched for that team that is going to threaten Georgia.
Yeah, and when you look at what Tennessee was facing, they had a shot here, right? A magical season now completely shattered. Yeah. Because, look, you lose to Georgia, and let's say Georgia beats LSU in the SEC championship game, you got a shot to get into the college football playoff and earn some redemption. Yeah. But now it's like, oh, man, the magical season that could have been. Hendon Hooker gets injured on the road at South Carolina. I mean, this is just a huge letdown for Vols fans everywhere. When you consider what they were trying to build, Shane Beamer, second season at South Carolina. Josh Heupel, second season at Tennessee. And you could certainly say he was way ahead of schedule in terms of where he had the program.
Yeah, there's no doubt. If you're Tennessee, this is an absolute gut punch. This is more than one gut punch. This is South Carolina punching you in the gut, punching you in the chin, punching you in the face. I mean, this is at the magical season. And look, Tennessee, they controlled their own destiny. If they had just won out, Michigan or Ohio State, one of them's got to lose. I mean, Tennessee has the best loss of the one-loss teams, but now, after this loss, they're completely out of it. It is just demoralizing for a team that had everything going for it just 3 weeks ago, for a fan base that was just yearning and went through so much to get to a point where they were nationally relevant. And look, I don't think that they should be treated as a joke, that this season should be treated as one that is a letdown. It is still a very, very impressive season, a massive step forward for Josh Heupel, no matter what happens against Vanderbilt. Honestly, they could lose to Vanderbilt. They're not going to, I don't think, although Vandy is playing much better. But even if they were, it's still a huge step forward to be in the top 10, to be ranked number 1 at one point in the season, to beat Alabama and break that streak. It is still a massive step forward no matter what happens. But man, that sour taste, I mean, that's not going to be good this offseason.
So, we have, obviously, a 4-team college football playoff. But see, this is the situation where I sit and I think, okay, now this is where I want a 12-team playoff. Because I want to see a team like Tennessee with 2 losses get in and see if they can wreak some havoc and get sort of another shot to maybe win a title. And to me, this is where this opens up the conversation that you want a team like Tennessee who fought so hard but had a hiccup in week 12, but then maybe comes back and beats Vanderbilt in the final game of the regular season, and then they still get a shot. This is where the conversation flips, right? Because I know you're pro 4 teams, or maybe even pro take us back to the BCS situation. But this is a situation, Barrett, where I would argue this is why we'd want the 12-team expansion.
I would say you're completely wrong. Now, look, it's a political stance. We just had an election. I have given up my platform on anti-expansion. I have moved on. I have conceded that race. But I will tell you that this is a perfect example of why 4 is the right number, because you had 4 teams today that survived scares but found ways to do it. You're going to have 4 undefeated teams if they win out. Why should Tennessee get a chance? They just got smoked by a 6-4 team. That's their second loss of the season. Whereas these other 4 teams are undefeated and getting the job done on their bad days. That's what championship medal is to me.
Yep, you make a good point. But I have to ask for the sake of argument.
But I've conceded. I've conceded the election. I've conceded it.
Well, I mean, look, none of us have control over it. We can just talk about it because the powers that be are the ones that have control over the expansion, and we know it's both on the horizon. So we know it's coming. But this is the argument for it. I mean, right? This is the kind of situation where a 2-loss Tennessee or a 2-loss Alabama, and you can't tell me that not every week matters because Tennessee's still going on the road to Columbia to try to win this game. They're not saying, oh, we can afford a loss because there's a 12-team playoff. No. You played sports. I played sports. You're not going into it thinking that you can give up in week 12 and go, we're still going to get in. No, that argument I don't agree with because people think that they'll just go and, play down to their opponent. That ain't happening, especially in the SEC, especially in Power 5 football. That would be my argument for a 2-loss team that gets another shot.
But each season's a different landscape. Hakeem, each season's a different landscape. And right now, you've got 4 undefeated teams that continuously win games on their D+ or C- nights. That matters.
It does. You're absolutely right about it. You're absolutely right. Right now, we got 4 teams, and Tennessee ain't going to be one of them this year, perhaps in the years to come. Barrett Sallee here on CBS Sports HQ, much more ahead.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.